As technology develops, of course, instances of e-crime are continuing to grow at a pretty alarming rate. It's estimated that more than 12.5 million people fell victim to cybercrime in the past 12 months, with 1 in 5 online adults, that's 21%, falling victim to either social or mobile cybercrime.
The rate of technological change in our society has been and continues to be dramatic, and the pace of change is likely to accelerate rather than slow down. These technological advances may provide new opportunities for criminals to exploit, so we need to be ahead of the game. The first step towards protection is a better understanding of the types and variety of threats currently being faced. A reduction in crime will keep individuals safe, as well as benefiting businesses of all sizes. Please help us to make it ever more difficult for the criminals to succeed.
Two-factor authentication, as I said in the slide before, that's like saying Betamax. That's old school, that's dinosaur, that's so much 2011. Nowadays it's called multi-factor authentication. Basically because you need more than 2 factors. You need multi-factors to ensure that a person is who he claims to be when he logs into a given system.
As you look at the PCI DSS and start to implement these controls, the best decision-making element you could use is, what would I do if my card data was in here? You know, I talk to CEOs of companies and I say, would you put your card in that database? And say, no. Why not? These are people's lives we're talking about. You know, there are expectations here that this card data that belongs to you and me, and you know, my card's still sitting on this table. I don't know if you've seen me look down 300 times during this presentation. I got my eye on it. That is clearly, now why can't you take that back to your organization and look at every single credit card that you process could be mine, could be the person sitting next to you, and realize that you've got just due diligence. There's an expectation on you and your company from this client. You're going to protect that. And at the end of the day, just ask yourself, what if this were my credit card? Would I take this risk?
BYOD is the biggest trend that we're seeing today. 2011, we had 17,000 devices connected. And by the end of our fiscal year last year, nearly 25,000 iPhones were connected. Every single one of those iPhones, iPads, and Android devices and other are all personally owned. Security. You need to identify the user, you want to identify the device, you want to identify the type, what applications they're trying to get access to. The other thing is policy. You need a policy. Even if your policy is no, we don't want to allow bring your own device, you need a policy to do that, and then policy to enforce.
82.5 million unique samples of malware are out there in the wild, okay? That slide there is a couple of weeks old. It is already out of date. Our labs are seeing between 250,000 and 300,000 unique samples of malware in any 24-hour period on average. So that number has already grown. The risk is around data loss with these devices, okay? There is malware out there on the Android devices, and that is a risk, and you need to take precautions against that. But at the moment, the biggest risk that you're going to face to mobile devices is data loss, okay? Connecting to fake wireless hotspots. Okay, so there's a few things that you can do, but the one that will save most companies and people in here is to do the basics. You need to do the basics. So what do I mean by that? Enforce the right policies, educate your users, okay? Make sure that they know why a passcode is important. Make sure they know why they should prompt their phone to ask them to connect to Wi-Fi. Explain what the risks are, okay? Everybody's there, everybody needs to do this.
Between 87% of organisations actually think cloud will improve their security and is actually going to make their organisation safer and more secure. Yet at the same time, when they're adopting cloud services, I think quite rightly, security is being seen as their #1 concern. This is the one thing that they are most concerned about in adopting cloud. What it all comes down to is basically, if you want to have a safe cloud, you need to protect the policy. But of course, as part of that, you need to have the policy in place first. You need to know what it is that you're trying to achieve so that you can make sure that the provider is meeting those needs.
Over 75,000 mobile devices. Last year, 12 months, 75,000 of these devices that you and I carry around from iPads, any kind, were left in taxis. That is astounding when you think of it. First and foremost, so how do you get a grip on this whole problem? Well, you got to look at the risk, and actually, absolutely the number one risk is to lose the device. These devices that we're carrying, they're not just phones, they're not computers anymore. All right, it's more than that, and you're naive to think that the iPhone or your iPad or your tablet, whatever you're carrying, is not profiling you as a user. Stealth installs, me installing something on your phone, if you're not paying attention to this, understand that you're also carrying around a microphone in your pocket, and that if I can access your phone, I can enable your camera, I can take the pictures that you've taken, but I can make remote calls from your devices.
So it's pretty clear that without the work being undertaken by the eCrime Wales Partnership in raising awareness of the problem and launching initiatives to tackle the criminals and their activities, it's pretty obvious these figures would be much, much worse.